Last time I was on, I did the open tag about American-made knives, and what could be more quintessentially American than a case trapper. Now what I'm going to do is, in this day and age, one kind of assumes that knives are either um, brilliantly made knives in America or cheap knives made in China, although there are people like JE here who are doing great work to try and show that Chinese knife making can be as good as anywhere in the world, and in many cases, including this, probably better. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a world tour of the knife world, avoiding America and China, and see where else we can go. Now, one thing you will probably be aware of is that back in the early days of knife making, I'm really only talking about in the modern world, so 17th century onwards, the first big centre of knife making, or first big centres of knife making, one of which was Sheffield in England. And there are many traditional patterns that date back a long, long way that come from there. Just an ordinary single-ended jackknife, this one with a sheep's foot blade. Now, but the old pattern that's become so synonymous worldwide is the Barlow, and I have a couple of Barlows here made by Taylor's Eyewitness, which are two of the best fit and finish knives you'll ever see. They will actually, and you might find this incredible, but I say that they will put a GEC knife to shame. There are no laminates in the mother of pearl here. This is a big hunk of mother of pearl. There's a bit of ram's horn. They're beautifully made. There is no factory or production line process involved, and there is not been passed from one person to another to do a stage and do a stage. These knives are genuinely made by somebody called Lee White from scratch, in a way like a custom knife, only because it's a pattern that's been established since mid part of the 17th century by Obadiah Barlow himself. There's little design work going into it. It's just the craft to make sure that these knives are, when they leave their premises, are as perfect as a knife can possibly be. Fortunately, they're also as stiff as a knife can possibly be, and as I don't carry the mother of pearl one very often, it's staying stiff. Beautiful clip point blade. Anyway, so that's Sheffield. Sheffield nowadays turns out knives, some of which try to be nice, like this one. It's got a horn handles, it's got some nice file work on the back, but honestly, fit and finish and things are just not up to standard. So these were Sheffield knives, all of them quite modern. Other Sheffield knives, because we're a seafaring nation, we also make these things. We also make military knives. They make military knives as well, but they're not something that I really collect. I've got one or two, but this here, this was issued to the Royal Navy from 1938 up until the mid-80s. It's a really good solid knife. Now, these were made by all the decent Sheffield knife makers over the years. This one by a company called Myson, Myson, as opposed to cross swords of Myson, China. This is a more modern one, but again, it's still made. This is still made in Sheffield. It's much lighter. This is more of a civilian pattern. It's sort of a cross between the Navy one and the Army ones that are issued. The Army ones are usually 2 layers and have a can opener in them. Right, so where will we go next? Why don't we cross over and have a little look at France? Now, France, of course, is very well known for its open L knives. And open L knives are super lightweight, super simple, super cheap, excellent cutters with the power of a scalpel combined with a laser, combined with a lightsaber, because they're very thin, they're very easily sharpened, and if you want to take a knife to go on a picnic, you can't beat an open L for cutting your cheese and cutting your bread and things like that. It's just what they do. If you're going to get into a knife fight, make sure you can run very quickly if you're carrying an open L, because quite honestly, they're not the sturdiest of blades. These are a utility knife, and particularly good with food. I've used one camping, but I kind of preferred a stouter blade. Now, another knife though. There are lots of really high quality manufacturers of knives in France. Most of them are either too big or lock, so I don't tend to buy them. I bought this one because it was just too beautiful. Now this is really hard to open, but it's got a beautiful, it's called the Epicurean, and it's a lock knife. And if I can turn it around, you can see here. Oh, you can see my phone. L'Epicurean by Robert David. Now, I just bought this because it's just beautiful. Absolutely no other reason than that. Made in France, and it is beautiful burl wood. I've no idea what the type of wood is. Also comes with this clip on the back, so that if you're carrying it in your pocket, and I'm not trying to pretend this is a concealed knife, and therefore subject to arrest for carrying a concealed weapon. No, but it goes in your pocket and it almost looks like a pen. I always thought if I got the black lacquer, acrylic, it would go nicely with my Mont Blanc pens on either gold clips. Anyway, so that's France. Where do we go next? How about Germany? France and Germany have a bit of history. Now, talking of history though, if we go back to the time of the Barlow, this is when, I don't know what the word in German is, but it means folding butcher. So when the folding butcher was a traditional pattern, it's possibly German, possibly Austrian, it's very difficult to know, and in many ways it doesn't really matter, but it's from there. And I would imagine that it will be an Austrian or a German that took these over to America, and people made them throughout the 19th century, and then Case decided to trademark the name, and they called it a sodbuster. Now all these knives are called sodbusters, which is a little bit unfortunate. In fact, this one is actually marketed, but it's by Carl Schlieper of Solingen. It's actually marketed as a clodbuster, would you believe? But anyway, that's a traditional German knife. Another, if we look at we go back to Sheffield, we had these sort of type of very traditional, simple pocket knives. Germany was not far behind in making something similar. They may be, one way of, who knows who copied it from who. But this is the Ankermesser. This is in some ways a modern take on a traditional design, because this one is all stainless steel. They do it with a carbon blade as well, but I prefer stainless steel blades for collecting purposes and less maintenance. This is the Otter Ankermesser, made by the Otter company. Again, though, in Solingen in Germany. And the sincerest form of flattery is imitation. And so here we have a German Solingen, made by Boker of Solingen, the tree brand, Barlow knife. Now, where do we go from here? Well, companies like Puma, is a famous German knife manufacturer, make knives in Germany. They have some knives made in the Far East. The best knives are made in Germany, I think, but they also have knives made in Spain. So if you see a knife that says Puma IP, International Production, it's probably made in Spain. It might be made in Italy, but most of them are made in Spain. So I have two Spanish-made knives here. I'm dotting about Europe a bit, I get that, but I wanted to try and think of some way to link, one knife to the next. So I have two of these Puma IP knives. These are just really beautiful handmade knives. It just goes to show that you can churn out relatively inexpensive. I mean, these are £50 sort of knives, handmade for £50. They are beautifully made. They're individually Rockwell tested. Each of them has on the back of it. Ow! Stab myself in the knuckle with it. That's the difference between looking through the screen and looking. If I can get it to focus on it. Well, I don't know if I can get it to focus, but believe me, there's a little point on the blade there where it's Rockwell tested. So they each come with a little Rockwell certificate that tell you they're 58 to 59 Rockwell. So, you know, that's quite nice. This one, again, it's in lovely burl wood. The only downside of these ones is they were quite dry. So I put quite a lot of ballast oil on them to bring out the texture in this case, birch. Oh dear. It doesn't like focusing, does it? Right. I'll work out a way to make these things focus. And pop those away. So if we've been to Germany and France, the next place to go is probably Italy. Now, Italy has again the tradition of knife making that goes back a long way, and this one here ties in with the German thing, because this is effectively a sodbuster pattern. I mean, the blades become a bit more pointed than a lot of modern takes on sodbusters. I've even got one with a clip point, which is a bit more unusual. But this is an Italian Mazarin knife. The other Italian knife I have is it's kind of the equivalent of an Opinel, except this one is incredibly stiff to open, and it's just not the quality of an Opinel. Sorry, just had to use my teeth there. I'm fully fit from the. I can't get it open. Doesn't really matter. Well, this is just a lightning tour anyway. So this is just a cheap Italian sort of equivalent of the Opinel. So where do we go from there? We can cross over the Alps and let's have a little look at Switzerland. Switzerland is very famous for its knives, but it's very famous for one particular sort of knife, the Swiss Army knife. These are all made in Switzerland. They make over 1 million of them a year. They've been doing that for 100 years. That means that there are an awful lot of these knives in circulation around the world. And if you haven't got one or had one, been given one or handled one, oh, well, you're not really a knife person, are you? So there's just an example of some, and that's most of the principal sizes that are UK legal. Try and just get one out of its sheath. So we've got the little 58mm classics. This is the classic SD. We've got the 88mm size, this one being the waiter. We've got the 91mm, which is effectively a standard Swiss Army knife, and the 93mm ALOX. The 88s are also available in ALOX. ALOX is you get no back tools, but rather than the pressed on plastic scales, you have these nice anodized aluminium ones. This is the Pioneer X with scissors, which I carry every single day as an extra over and above whatever I'm carrying that day. So where else have we got in Europe? I dare say people like the Dutch and the Belgians and so forth have made knives, but here's a new one on the block, which is Bulgaria. Now, this is the Manly Wasp. They make a relatively small range of knives, but what they're very, very good at is their heat treat and their pricing policy. So this one here, this is the Manly Wasp. This is the Haynes edition. This is in, which again, if I can get it to focus. I've cut myself a couple of times already today. Oh, there we are. This is an S90V, would you believe, and for 50 quid. You don't get many S90V blades for 50 quid. Heat treatment of these is particularly good. I gave one of these to my son, and I do have to sharpen it for him relatively frequently because he's a landscape gardener, but you know, it works. He likes it. Okay, so I think we'll call it quits for Europe. I'm going to go to Africa now. I don't have many African knives. All my African knives come from one country and from one maker. Oh, I missed something in Europe. Oh, how could I miss Europe? It's not finished with Europe. Oh, Scandinavia, Finland. These are probably my 3 favourite everyday carry knives. These are the Enzo PK70. These are great knives. This is my kind of dress one. It's G10 with titanium bolsters. And it is super, super lovely. I'm trying to open this through the camera, and what I think my thumbnail isn't where it is. There we are. Got it. This is a number of things I like about it. Here's something I really like about it though. The half stop. So I'm not a big thing on half stops. The half stop isn't half. Now, what that means is, that if you've got a knife in your hand and you want to just close it, if you push it over like that, it doesn't go to halfway. It stops before halfway. In other words, it stops before it takes a lump out of your thumb, a lump out of your finger. So a lot of knives, when they hit that half stop, that sharp bit of blade hits on that bit of finger and cuts you. Anyway, I have 3 of these. I had originally got the carbon fibre one. Carbon fibre is my least favourite because it's kind of flat. But I've recommended these to a lot of people, and now they've stopped making them and they've sold out. So I was talking to Dennis at Brisa that make them, and I said, you know, it's a real shame because I'd love to complete my collection. I've got a carbon fibre, I've got a G10, and I would really like the micarta one. And he said, well, I can make you a micarta one and I'll send it to you. 24 hours later, this arrived from Finland. Now, actually, I know why I missed these out actually, because they're not really Finnish. They're not Chinese either. These are made overseas. The Endo knives, most of them are made in, some of them are made in Finland, but most of them are made in either Italy or Taiwan. And these are made in Taiwan, which strictly speaking is the Republic of China, so one could call it China. And certainly the Chinese call it China, but the rest of the world says no. So these are, we've gone to Asia rather than Africa, I suppose, but these are, they're just the best everyday carry knives in the UK. They're 68mm blades, so they're well under the 76mm maximum. There's no question about whether you measure that, the length of the curve or of the blade, or the straight line from the tip of the handle, from the ricasso. However you measure it, these are legal. They're lovely to carry in the hand. The fit and finish is the best. You know, again, these are an attempt to put GEC to shame. These are made in the Taichung factory in Taiwan, the same one that Spyderco uses for things. I mean, you almost wouldn't believe that there was a backspring and 2 liners until you just get the light on it right and you can see it. So while we're in Asia, but not China, I've one Japanese knife. I've only the one. I've got some Japanese swords, but that's a whole different ball game. So I used to carry one of these knives every day, not this one because it actually belongs to my brother, but I bought this for him for his 30th birthday and I've just had it home to sharpen it. This is a silver turn. I've no idea who made it. The only thing I know is it's made of 440 steel and it was made in Japan. This was my everyday carry. I had my big beast of a buck knife or a fixed blade somewhere, not always close to hand, but in the pocket of my suit. You know, I worked in an office, pocket of my suit, this is what was always there. You could pull it out in any occasion and never frighten anybody. So anyway, let's say that's Asia done. Move some of these out of the way. So I cut myself again. So I've cut myself there. And I've cut myself there twice. Oh, and a third one down there. I don't know. Anyway, so let's go to Africa. Now in Africa, all my African knives are South African knives and they all come from Andre de Villiers. I like Andre de Villiers knives. I really like his butcher patterns. So I got a little baby butcher. And then I got, I didn't get them in this order. Well, I did get them in this order. I had another one first, but these 3 have come in this order. Then I have this one's called a pocket butcher. So we have a mini butcher, a pocket butcher, and now I can't do knives that flick. I can. Apparently I can. And then I have the full 4-inch butcher. Now, I love these knives. This is what the mid-tech. The handle's very plain, but the blade's phenomenal. I mean, it's just there's so many different facets to it. With that deep fuller, and each one's got a different finish to it. So you've got satin finishes, you've got polished finishes, beautiful polished edge. Don't put that on it. I don't think it came from the factory that way. It might do, but it's incredibly sharp. And the other Andre de Villiers that I have is the MP. And maybe one day if I'm ever rich enough, I might have the MP in the different sizes as well. Or if I see them come up second hand somewhere, I bought most of these second hand. I bought 2 of them second hand, 2 of them new. So anyway, so that's me done. We've done Europe to death. We've brought something from Africa. We brought something from Asia. I've missed out India. I've missed out Indian subcontinent. I suppose it's part of Asia. One day I'll probably find I've got some knives that were made in Pakistan or somewhere like that, but I'm not aware of it. And I've also got, I've missed out America, of course, because we did the one on American knives. So there we are. Thank you very much. Bye.